Hey everyone, Aaron here from MTGChallengers, and welcome to another Magic the Gathering deck tech. Today I'm going to be going over Rakdos Aggro for Born of the Gods Standard. So this is a red-black aggro deck that me and Evan put together. It's similar to the Rakdos Aggro decks that were good in Theros Standard, but I think the new additions I made from Born of the Gods made it an overall better, more consistent deck. So let's get started with the creatures. First I have 4 Rakdos Cackler. 2 powered creatures for 1, as a general rule, are really good, and this one is no exception. Most of the time you'll be unleashing him, but if you need a blocker, the option is there as well. So like if you're on the draw against an aggro mirror, you can play him turn 1 leashed, as it were, and he can be a blocker for you. And for the other 1-drop, I have 4 Tormented Hero. 2 1 for 1, so it's another 2 powered creature for 1 mana, which is great. It does enter tapped, but it has a heroic ability that's pretty decent. It can shave life off of my opponent and gain me back some. It seems negligible at first, but in aggro every life point counts. For 2 drops, I have 4 Radkos Shred-Freak. Just a really nice little haste guy. He swings in the turn he comes into play. His mana cost is also very nice for the deck, since you'll always be able to cast him on turn 2, since it's hybrid black or red. Then I have Spike Jester, 4 copies of him as well. Just another great haste guy. 3 power is really awesome to be able to bash in on turn 2. The mana cost is a little bit more difficult than the Freak, since it requires red, but you'll still be able to get him out just about every time. Moving on to the 3 drops, I have 4 Mogis' Marauder. This card is just insane for fast aggro decks like this one. You can drop him turn 3 and give him and all your other creatures you've played so far haste and intimidate, so they'll all be swinging in and probably not getting blocked. He's also not awful in the case of a top deck on an empty board, since the devotion trigger does resolve when he enters the battlefield, so at that point your devotion will be 1, so you can use it on himself. So you will have a 2/2 haster in case you have an empty board. Then I have 3 Xathrid Necromancer. It's a really good effect, so whenever him or another human I control dies, I get a 2/2 zombie. So you might think that, well, this isn't a human deck, there aren't enough humans to support that effect, but there actually are. If you look at the creature types for the cards in this deck, there's actually a huge number of humans. Tormented Hero is a human, Rakdos Shred-Freak is a human, both the Marauder and the Necromancers are humans, and Exava is a human as well. So there are plenty of humans to support the effect. It gets lots of zombies, and what a good effect it is. It forces them into awkward uses of removal, as well as unprofitable blocks. It's also particularly good against Supreme Verdict and other board wiping effects, since you'll just be getting a bunch of zombies to replace the humans that you lost. Now on to the main win conditions of the deck. I have 4 Exava Rakdos Blood Witch. Really just a powerhouse for this deck. We will be unleashing her most of the time, so she'll be a 4/4 haste first striker for 4, which should deal with most blockers very well, and it could be the final punch to do in the opponent. And the second ability is there in case I like top deck a Rakdos Cackler late game, so I can just play it and unleash it, and it will get haste, which is a cool interaction. Then I have the big bad Mogis, God of Slaughter. Here is a 3 of. So a new card from Born of the Gods. He's my pick for best multicolored god for constructed. A potential 7/5 for 4 is really nice, and the effect is also great for aggressive decks, so it'll either get them closer to 0 life, or eliminate a blocker, so either way it's going to be really good for you. And the effect does come into play the very next turn you cast him. It being a creature is also not out of possibility. I'm only running 4 non-permanents in the deck, so it could be another 7 power for my opponent to worry about as well. So that's it for the creatures. On to the other spells. I have a playset of Madcap Skills. The card is really exactly what aggro wants. It buffs power a good deal, and it makes it more difficult to block. I also needed to throw something in here to trigger Tormented Hero's heroic ability, so this card serves a very nice double purpose. Then I have some removal. 2 copies of Ultimate Price is good for killing most creatures. Since Standard is much less multicolored than it used to be with all the monocolored devotion decks running around, I felt that this was a little bit more relevant than, say, Doomblade. And then I have 2 copies of Dreadbore. Since I have access to red here, I felt that this was a little bit better than Hero's Downfall due to the cheaper cost. In aggressive decks, that's pretty important, so I think for this deck, the sorcery speed is a worthy trade-off. I also wanted to have some Planeswalker removal main board, since there are quite a few running around in Standard these days. Then we come to the mana base. It consists of 22 lands, 4 Blood Crypt of course, and with Born of the Gods we got the Scry land for red and black, so Temple of Malice is here as well as a 4 of. Even the fastest aggro decks can afford to have a few tap lands, especially since it can get rid of dead cards on the top of your library, and with the better mana base I felt that the deck could support some level of Mutavault, so I put 2 in here. Just a really good land for aggressive decks, just a great land in general, that's why it's $35. It provides another creature to be able to swing in with for more damage, and since it has all creature types, it will actually trigger the Necromancer if it dies, so that's a kind of an interesting interaction there. And then I have 12 basic lands, which break down into 7 swamps and 5 mountains. The deck is more of a mono black shell with a red splash, so that's why there are more swamps than mountains. So that's it for the main deck, let's move into the sideboard. First off, I have a 4th Xathrid Necromancer, mainly for the blue-white and Esper matchups where they're going to be relying on mass removal, so the Necromancer really does make that situation bad for them. Then I have a playset of Thoughtseize, just really nice to have them in the side to get rid of difficult things like Blood Baron of Vizkopa or the Gods. It's also just great disruption against things like mono green and mono black. I have 3 copies of Dark Betrayal. Mono black is seeing so much play right now, as it likely will continue to do so, so it's always nice to have an efficient way to kill their creatures. Then I have 2 Doomblade and another ultimate price, just here to side in case of a monocolored deck and or a non-black one. Then I have 2 copies of Bile Blight in case I run into decks with things like Boros Reckoner or Pack Rat. Just a really nice card for 2 and 3 for 1ing your opponent. Also in the case of decks with a lot of weenie creatures. Just really nice for 2 for 1ing your opponent if the matchup would behoove it. It also gets around indestructibility, which is nice. And finally I have 2 more copies of Dreadbore, mainly for more Planeswalker hate in case I'm up against like mono green with all their Garriks, Domries, and Xenagoses, or against blue-white Esper control with their Jaces, Elspeths, and Ashioks. So that's it for this deck tech. Thank you all very much for watching. To see these decks in action, check out our gameplays and also be sure to keep up with the other deck techs that we upload. Thanks for visiting, and if you like what you see, subscribe for more Magic the Gathering content.